we had a firm agreement that Mr. Staffieri would appear before this committee today to discuss the matter at hand. And it's important. Changes were made at the last minute, indeed, and this is an opportunity to answer to Canadians through the members of the committee. So that is the context of this motion, as I understand it. So I'll now yield the floor to MP Rempel-Garner.
Would it be possible for myself and Mr. Perkins just to switch our speaking
Absolutely.
spots? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Mr. Massey, for moving forward. It was your original study and motion on this important thing to go forward. And to reiterate, this is the third time we've been stiffed by Mr. Staffieri. He decided, we invited him in January, February. He refused, sent other underlings. And then I think when I tabled a summons motion within 48 hours before that appearance, he decided to come. We did it a second time in February. There was another appearance. Again, he sent other underlings and didn't come. The third time is this one. I think it's unacceptable that Mr. Staffieri thinks it's more important to do whatever it is he's doing than to be accountable to Parliament for the company that he is the CEO of. However, as some of my committee members, I'm not perhaps as gentle as Mr. MP Massey, so I would propose the following amendment to Mr. Massey's motion, which is to delete everything after the committee. The motion currently reads that consistent with the motion passed by this committee on Monday, October 28, 2024, the committee, I would delete everything after that and replace it with summons Rogers Communications Chief Executive Officer Tony Staffieri and the Chief Corporate Affairs Officer Navdeep Bains to appear before the committee for a minimum of 2 hours within 7 days following the adoption of this motion. That should the witnesses refuse to appear within 7 days, the committee make the following interim report to the House. Your committee wishes to admonish Rogers Communications Chief Executive Officer Tony Staffieri for failing to make himself available to the committee despite being invited by the committee on October 28, 2024, then later summoned on November 28, 2024, and that the committee insists that this witness in hiding appear before the committee for 2 hours before the House recess for the Christmas break.
Okay. This is a lengthy amendment. Is it possible to send it around so that members can... Yeah, so it's basically the text of the motion you had prepared, Mr. Perkins, so perhaps we can distribute that and members will see what you're referring to.
Yeah, and it just comes in after Mr. Massey's one, which was a little different than the one that was tabled or not given on notice.
Okay, so I'll just give a second for the clerk to distribute it. And now I have on the amendment.
Just further finish on that. The reason obviously is look, if this happens once, perhaps within a 2 weeks period, a CEO of one of Canada's largest companies, 2 to 3 weeks, might not be able to find the time to get on the private jet and fly here. But this is not fool me once, fine, fool me twice. It's a habit. This is a habit of this CEO not wanting to be accountable to Parliament, and I've had enough. It's disrespect to our democratic process. He may not think much of our democratic process, and I can understand why he doesn't think much, because we tried to hold them account for these outrageous things like jacking up the price of a rental box for your Wi-Fi or your cable by $7 a month when you have a fixed rate contract. I understand that, and it's no offense to our witness here who probably runs the business as his executive team wants him to gouge customers on fine print. But Mr. Staffieri is ultimately the guy who's accountable to the board. If he's not willing to go, I think maybe we'll summons Edward Rogers next if we continue this habit of this company defying Parliament. They are, by the way, the most expensive cell phone company in the world. I know I don't have to tell Canadians that. They know that. But if you don't believe me, believe the international comparison study that's about 800 pages of cell phone companies around the world called Rewheel. We have copies of it on our side. We could probably get one from the industry department for some other folks if they wanted it. But it's quite damning on every package size, on every cell phone company in every world, that Rogers continues to consistently be the most expensive. So I guess that's perhaps why, if that's not bad enough on their rates, they bury in the fine print other unlimited charges that they can jack up when some customer signs a fixed rate contract. They usually think that means fixed rate for 2 years. That if you're going to pay $100 for your cell phone with all the bells and whistles, about twice what you would pay in the U.S., that somehow that fee won't change during the 2 years. Or that when you pick your bundled package with your cable box, that's on a fixed rate. That's how they're marketed. They're marketed as a fixed rate. You know, we'll give you this great deal. Put all this together, bundle it together, and this is what you're going to pay every month. Except if you're a Rogers customer, apparently you've got to read the 42 pages of fine print they send you in the email contract, because they don't print out paper ones anymore when you go in their store. And buried in that is the escape valves. So Mr. Staffieri has to be held accountable for this. He has to stop thumbing his nose at Parliament, and he has to come here and be accountable for the actions of the company he leads.
Merci, Mr. Perkins. Madame Rempel-Garn.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Madame Rempel-Garn.
So I'll speak in support of this amendment. Colleagues, the situation that we have in front of us today is this is the third time that the CEO of a company that receives significant benefit from the Canadian government, both through tax incentives, direct contributions, as well as a regulatory environment that makes it difficult for new entrants to come into the market. This is the third time that CEO has thumbed his nose at this committee. I think, colleagues, that what we are experiencing here is much like the service that Rogers provides to its customers, which we were going to investigate with the CEO today. I know in my inbox, I'm sure many of you as well, cross-party lines, frequently receive complaints from our constituents, specifically with regard to this company, its customer service, a feeling of helplessness and frustration. And the behavior of the CEO towards our committee, towards parliamentarians, in a committee that has a mandate to oversee at least part of the regulations and regulatory environment that it operates in, it's just, they think we're stupid, colleagues. They really do. So, I'll just, Mr. Chair, I'll direct my comments perhaps to the GR and legal team that are watching this from Rogers. I cannot believe they did this. Like, did they really think that there would be no consequence to telling us that their CEO couldn't come? Like, actually think about this. Those people, Chair, actually said, oh, no, he doesn't. This committee doesn't matter. I want to be very clear to those people, Chair. There is a desire to ensure that there is competitiveness in this particular area. I've had concerns about this particular company since the government approved the merger of it with Shaw. But for the CEO to just blow us off 3 times, like he blows off his consumers on a regular basis, is I'll put it this way: it's been noticed. It's been noticed, and it's been noticed, I know, in my party. And certainly my colleagues and I are thinking about, well, how would we approach the regulatory environment should at some point in the future we form government? And to be just blown off at the last minute by the CEO, well, it makes one want to reciprocate that behavior, doesn't it? But that's not how Parliament should function. So I think that I know that like Mr. Perkins' amendment, and I'm talking to my colleagues in the Bloc and the NDP particularly, it might, it says, look, if he doesn't come by this date, we are going to admonish, essentially we're going to admonish him in Parliament. that type of escalation, given that he's blown this committee off 3 times, I think is warranted at this point. I think that we need to send a message, this committee needs to send a message to Canadian consumers that we're on their side, not the side of the CEO. We're done with this obfuscation. And that's so I feel that if we're not accepting that amendment today, if we're not saying we're prepared to escalate, we're essentially just saying, like, we're like Lucy holding the football with Charlie Brown. I appreciate I'm aging myself with that reference, but that's really what we're doing here. And I think we need to send a message to this company that we're done. We're done. Again, Chair, through you, like to the GR and legal teams that are, I am done with this. I cannot believe that they wasted my time today. Yes. I cannot believe that they wasted my time, and now that we're wasting committee time because they did this to me. That says that they don't respect me as a parliamentarian, and that's something that I'll remember when they try to get meetings with us and come up to us at events and go, oh, hey, girl, how's it going? Haven't seen you in a while. It's like, well, I haven't seen you in a while. If you don't have the ability to respect the committee time by saying what we do, why should we respect you? And it's the same transaction with its customers, and it's the feeling of frustration that its customers has with this company as well too. So I wanted to put that on the record, Chair. I want to ask my colleagues with the NDP and the Bloc particularly to consider this amendment because it is justified escalation. I fully expect. Here's my rationale. I fully expect the CEO to blow us off again. I don't have a lot of. They will blow us off again. So then we're going to have to spend more taxpayer dollars and more committee time doing Mr. Perkins' motion again in the future. So I would suggest that we send a strong message today and say we're done. We're done with you wasting our time. And I think that this could have been an opportunity for the Rogers CEO to put a positive message forward. But here we are. It could have. There was no intent to be hostile here. It was more like, why are you doing this? It was and so for him to blow us off 3 times, it says you do not respect this committee, you do not respect Parliament, and frankly, you don't respect government. So why should we respect you? We have to imply motive at this point in time because of the actions of this man. Unbelievable. Please support this amendment.
Thank you.
This is a very important discussion and the important motion brought by Mr. Perkins. Canadians may not be aware that Rogers, Bell and TELUS are not just ordinary Canadian companies. They are sort of protected, cuddled for a long time. And people may not know that under Canadian law, any telecom company which has got market share more than 10% has to have 80% Canadian ownership and 80% of board members. And in 2012, the government amended so that the telecom companies with less than 10% market share can have increased foreign ownership. So that still left Rogers, Bell, and TELUS in control of this market, and Canadians are getting squeezed. We have heard about the pricing, but let me talk about the technical quality. We are in a G7 country, capital of the G7 country, and here my service provider has got 1 bar. And whenever we travel abroad, when we don't have telecom services, we go and look for Wi-Fi. Some of my colleagues are happy, they've got 2 bars. Great, lucky you. Okay, 1. But whenever we travel abroad, when we don't have telecom facilities, we go in search of Wi-Fi. And here in national capital of a G7 country, with only 3 providers, sometimes I have to go to surf the net or to look at something online. I have to go in search of Wi-Fi. So this is unacceptable. We are not talking about not getting quality access underground, deep underground in the parking garages, but we are talking about the regular building. And here in this parliamentary precinct, that is the heart of Canada democracy. So the telecom companies have been too protected. I think this protection is outdated, harmful, with no competition. It stifles innovation. However, with the changing global scenario, where the international free trade is dead, and all countries are adopting protectionist measures. So I don't know where to draw a line to protect the domestic companies, but when these domestic companies are abusing the protection provided to them, and what to do about it. Maybe it's time to relax the foreign direct investment rule that can allow the trusted allies like the Five Eye partners to bring in competition so that they can invest in telecom sector in Canada, irrespective of the market share, or whether they can buy out the existing firms or not. My understanding is that this is the third time the CEO of Rogers is thumbing his nose to this committee. This committee is an important committee for industry. It's a committee for industry and technology. And if he thinks that he has got political connections that can prevent him from appearing before the committee, he is wrong. If required, summons be issued, but I suggest the motion saying that, let's submit an interim report. Assuming that he will not answer the summons, I think that is wrong. Let's take the next logical step available to us. That is, we issue a summons if he refuses to appear next time. And if he refuses, then we can take what is required next. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So, Mr.
I thought MP Area was bang on until he wrapped up his concluding paragraph, which was to neuter this. This individual, Steffieri, has stuffed and stonewalled this committee all year, 3 times. He's got better things to do in his little office on Bloor Street than to come and be accountable to the people who represent all Canadians. And I've had enough. And he needs to know the consequences of ignoring the summons again. If he ignores it, he's going to be admonished and brought to the bar of the bloody House of Commons. I've had enough. And for the Liberals to go and say, oh no, let's give him a 4th chance, let's give him a 5th chance. How many times do you have to be kicked in the you-know-what by this guy before you actually say, I've had enough? I've had enough. Yeah, I'm bloody mad. I'm bloody mad that these guys are so contemptuous of Parliament that they're above it, earning their $10, $20 million a year, that they don't need to lower themselves to come here. The last time he was here, he lost his Zoom call because he didn't have the guts to show up in person, and I dare him when he's a summons to have the guts to show up here instead of sitting in his office in Toronto with his faulty Wi-Fi, which collapsed in the middle of the last time he was here. Thank God he had access to bells, I guess, because that's how he must have got back on the committee. Like, this is pathetic. And the fact that every member of Parliament and every Canadian isn't outraged at the arrogant nature of this individual who refuses to be held accountable to Parliament when Parliament gives him the spectrum that allows him to do what he does in overcharging Canadians. So to remove this is, to me, the worst possible signal you could send to this individual.
Thank you.